Hey guys, welcome back to this episode of Summer of Ecclesiastes here on the Janus Project. We are rapidly finishing up our background of the book of Ecclesiastes. I want to just kind of cover a few more quick topics and then we'll get into the text itself. You can kind of see the playlist. You can see all of what's scheduled out and hit that bell icon if you want to be notified. And what I'm going to do with the exposition of the text is I'm not going to do a whole lot in the way of introducing it. That way you can just kind of cue that thing up like a playlist and you can just hear the explanations as they go on down. Got some other side things that are going to pop up here and there. For instance, there's a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Absolutely great book. Dovetails extremely well with this book. It's a man who kind of took the other side. He went through a ton of suffering and he kind of learned how to deal with suffering. Solomon's going to deal with basically every experience you could have in life. And so really quick, before we get to that, let's deal with some of the theology that you're going to find in the book. Now, theology is the doctrine of God, but you've just got all sorts of other doctrines that you can deal with. And so let's deal with it. First of all, as you are approaching God, remember, one of the aspects of what Solomon is getting at is this idea of under the sun. And for the first part, he's kind of playing around with this idea of let's pretend God doesn't exist. Let's just pretend, and what's the point of everything that goes on in the earth if there is no after this? Like you're just going to die and you're just going to go in the ground. What difference does it make? And that's what Solomon's playing around with. But ultimately, he is going to come around to this idea. Obviously, we know God exists. Obviously, God's going to judge things. I mean, that's the ending of the book. Serve God because he's going to judge. But you really need to be careful of what you do when it comes to dealing with God, because don't try to impress him with your fancy speeches. He will not be impressed. And also, you need to remember that humans have limits. There's a limit to our understanding. There's a limit to our ability to impact God. And that's this idea of you can't straighten what God has made crooked and you can't bend what God has made straight. So just remember the human limits that are involved here, but understand that God himself has none. He has no limits that he has not imposed on himself. What do I mean by that? Go back to sovereignty. Go back to when we were talking about God having the freedom to do whatever he chooses to do as long as it's within his character. God has no limits that he has not placed on himself. Okay? Obviously, he's never going to do something that violates his character, but other than that, he pretty much has the limit to do things. And what you need to understand is Solomon is never going to question God's authority. He's just questioning, like, why did you choose to do it now? Or why didn't you choose to act? Or why did you choose to let that man get completely forgotten? Where's the justice here? There's corruption in the court system or whatever. Why is there this? And that's mainly what Solomon's dealing with. He never questions God's authority to do that. He's just really struggling with the timing and some of those things. As far as man, what Solomon's teaching, man is fleeting. Man and animals, they're just going to go back into the dust. Like, that's what you're going to be. All right. And we talk about vapor. We talk about all of the fleeting nature of everything in life. That's it. That's what you have to look forward to. Man doesn't control his legacy. And that's frustrating for Solomon because, I mean, he's building these monuments and these works. And it's this idea that at the end of the day, you do not get to determine how you're remembered. And or if you even are remembered. And he's going to use the illustration. He's going to say, there was this city. And in this city, there was a man. And he was a wise man. And he defended the city and delivered it. And I don't know who that man is. And so that's frustrating for him. You can't control your life. There's a time to be born. There's a time to die. And you don't have the ultimate control in that. You're going to get old. You're going to die. And there's nothing you can do about it. And so ultimately, man is fleeting. Okay? You get it? It's important. Okay? God is not, man is. It's in there twice for a reason. Okay? And again, it is the glory of God to conceal a matter. It's the glory of kings to search out a matter. But there are going to be some aspects and things that we still don't quite understand. That's why I think it's important to take the book of Job and the book of Ecclesiastes and to put them together. Because what Ecclesiastes is going to do is show you all the frustrating circumstances of life. Then Job is going to peel back the curtain and show why God, what's going on. And even then, it's not going to tell you all of why. It's just going to tell you there is a God in control and he will do things like this. And so, like we talked about with sovereignty, like we talked about with this idea of the hedge of protection. We talked about it with the board gaming illustration on why wisdom is the better choice. We should not tempt God by living wickedly. We do understand we deserve a penalty. We understand we deserve judgment. However, living wisely and seeking after God is a way that we can most likely stave off judgment. And if we live wickedly and if we live foolishly, then we are opening ourselves up to a quicker retribution, more likely retribution. Okay, I like the way, I believe this was Hollinger who put this way, but Ecclesiastes and Genesis, so these two books of the Bible, they exhibit substantial agreements as to the central point of the creation motif. Okay, so get this. Ecclesiastes and Genesis are both going to agree on this simple concept. Life is to be celebrated as a good creation of God. In the opening chapters of Genesis, 7 times God says it was good. He did not create things bad. He did not create a bad world. He did not create an evil world. Sin came in and corrupted it, but sin did not make all of creation bad. God looks at creation. He says it's good. Okay? Koheleth, Solomon, in speaking, he says, it is good for a man that he should eat and drink and make his soul to enjoy good in his labor. That is from the hand of God. Enjoy it. If you're given the opportunity to enjoy life, enjoy it. And so if you understand God and God's sovereignty and God's protection and God's wisdom, and you understand the fleeting of man and all the things that come along with that, you put those together and you say, I am going to enjoy the life that God's given me. However, I'm not going to live for that enjoyment. That's not all I'm going to do. So that's just an interesting little take. That's the theology of the book. A lot more we could say on that. Check the side note. I'm going to talk about pleasure in the side note, and hopefully that's helpful for you. And I will see you guys next time on probably the last episode before we get into the text itself.